Welcome to another episode of Called to Serve, where we profile the lives of people whom God has called to serve the church. Thank you also for your prayers for an increase in vocations for the priesthood and religious life for the Diocese of Sault Ste. Marie. Just on October 22nd, the Holy Father, Pope Francis, announced a new bishop for the Diocese of Sault Ste. Marie. He is Bishop Thomas Dowd, the auxiliary bishop of the Archdiocese of Montreal. And today, we're very blessed to welcome Bishop Dowd to this episode of Called to Serve. So, Bishop, welcome to you.
Thank you very much.
And welcome to the Diocese of Sault Ste. Marie. I'm sure you've had lots of messages and well wishes so far, but
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the northern hospitality that you're going to get used to when you come to Northern Ontario.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So let's start there, Bishop. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened when you got the call to become the next Bishop of Sault Ste. Marie? What was that experience like, and what was going through your mind and your heart?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I had actually been on Thanksgiving weekend. I had been with a couple of friends on Manitoulin Island, where I had never been before in my life. And as I was driving back on the Sunday, we were there a Friday, Saturday. So as I was driving back on the Sunday, you go through Espanola and then, just a bit south of Sudbury and just a bit north of North Bay. And as I was going, I realized, this diocese doesn't have a bishop. I should pray for them and pray for the next bishop of this diocese, whoever that might be, And the next day, the Pope's ambassador, the Apostolic Nuncio, called me and said, "Guess what?" Well, he didn't say "guess what," but you know what I mean. He said that I have good news. The Holy Father has appointed you Bishop of Sault Ste. Marie. To which my reaction was sort of, really? Okay. It just was one of those moments where, I didn't expect the call of God to literally come on my cell phone, but it did. And there you go. Of course, I said yes right away. It just seemed so clear.
It's amazing how God works like that. Before your visit to Manitoulin Island, you had never been anywhere in the Diocese of Sault Ste. Marie?
I drove through it in 1986 as we were on a family camping trip from Montreal all the way to Vancouver. So I think we camped near Espanola. Apart from that, that was about it.
Wow. Bishop, speaking of your family, can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing? And was your family sort of practicing the Catholic faith? Were you a close family growing up? And I believe you grew up right in the city of Montreal, Bishop?
That's right. I'm a Montrealer in the West Island part of Montreal. So my father is originally from Ottawa. Mom is an immigrant from Germany. They met in Ottawa, but then my dad's work, he was already working in Montreal when they got married. So they set up family in Montreal. And so that's why I grew up in Montreal, although I still have extended family in Ottawa and I've gotten to know the city quite well. Certainly Catholic upbringing, as you would say, going to church, altar server. Actually, my dad and I were a reader team. So it was a father-son team for doing readings at Mass, which was kind of nice. And I was a catechist as well. When they left to go to Ottawa, my dad retired, and so they moved to Ottawa from Montreal. I stayed behind and had my own parish. I moved into an apartment, had my own place. And then afterwards, I went into the seminary in Montreal for the Diocese of Montreal. So the family is certainly practicing one, myself, my brother passed away this past summer, but he was a man of faith. And my sister, she actually was a missionary with Net Ministries at one point. And at one point she was in India and met Mother Teresa and what have you. So certainly the life of faith was important to us.
Wow. And I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your brother. Can you tell us then what happened in that period of time between when you sort of moved out on your own and felt you were called to the seminary to study the priesthood?
Sure. I had my first degree I got my first degree from Concordia University in Montreal in international business and finance. And some people laugh when I say that, but I'll tell you, it's a better preparation for the priesthood than you might think. I don't think there's any, educational experience that could ever be wasted in the priesthood. I've known priests who are engineers, priests who were, previously lawyers. One priest I knew was previously an electrician. Different backgrounds and experiences that come together and help make us human. And we bring that humanity to our priesthood. So I moved into my own place. I was working for an international telecommunications firm called Ericsson. Great job. I enjoyed it. My sort of plan was to go off to an MBA and then possibly work. I always thought that business skills could be applied to community development. So I thought of perhaps working internationally in development. But, early 20s, I wasn't quite sure. But I'll tell you that at the time, I also was going through what a lot of young people go through, and sometimes not so young, which is sort of that crisis of faith, where you kind of wonder, what is this that I believe? Because, I had been raised, as I said, in a Catholic family, and so it sort of all came automatically. I had my own parish now as I was on my own, but going through that period, I questioned a lot, and I sort of said to myself, well, it's great to have this upbringing, but what does it mean for me? And so I started to investigate. This was at the very beginning of things like the World Wide Web. So I was very fortunate. I was able to download a lot of reading material, a lot of study, and just tried to get answers to my various questions. And although it was a challenging time, in some ways it was really a blessed time too, because I could say that, before I believed because I was Catholic. I believed what I believed because I was Catholic. I'd been raised Catholic and all of that. But after that experience, I was Catholic because I believed. It's not quite the same thing. There's a personal appropriation and, just this recognition that I'm part of something greater. And that's when the thought of perhaps, giving my life to the Lord and entering into the seminary, that its vocational call really came to the forefront. It's fair to say that it probably was always there from when I was little. But of course, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a priest, but I also wanted to be a fireman, and a cowboy and an astronaut and a whole bunch of things. As I was going through school, astronaut and cowboy kind of dropped off the list, but other things like business school came along. Priesthood was still there, but it was still in a mix, As I was going through that experience, as I was having more experience in the professional world, that kind of purified that even more. It refined it, you might say. I didn't go into the seminary convinced I was called to be a priest, but I knew that if I didn't go, I would never know. And so you in my case, I kind of took a leap of faith saying, I have to, if I'm going to be honest with myself and with the Lord, I have to find out. And I will only find out by giving it a try. Well, look where I wound up, So that's kind of my story.
Yeah, thanks be to God that you followed that. And it's really touching that you share that because a lot of people go through that experience where at a certain point in their life, faith has to become your own. It can't be something just handed down to you from your family. And that's when God really begins to really stir their heart and work wonders in their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Bishop, you were ordained a priest in 2001. So by the time you were named a bishop in 2011, you didn't have very much experience, I guess, as a priest. I mean, as a young priest to be ordained a bishop, what was that like?
I had been a priest for 9 years and some months. So that's unusual. It's unusual for that, kind of span to happen. People wondered, and I wondered, what does it mean? And I've come to the conclusion that, and I came to this pretty early on, that the Lord wanted me to learn how to be a bishop by being one. Very often the people who get picked to be bishops, it's because you've had a lot of experience working in diocesan leadership and what have you. And I had some of that. But I guess in my case, the Lord wanted me to learn how to be a bishop by being one, which is great in some ways, challenging in others. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've made a lot of mistakes as a bishop along the way, but with that sort of perception, I've always said to myself, well, mistakes will happen, but you got to learn from them. And, it helps keep things positive. So that's been kind of my approach. There's always the gag approach too. People say, why did they name you a bishop so early? And my answer is, well, desperate times call for desperate measures, Or another time, just when I was named, this fellow came up to me at a wedding I was doing. He said, aren't you a little young to be a bishop? And I was 40 at the time. So I said, well, actually, I'm 7 years older than Jesus. So, we forget how young he was. So why not? I figured I'll just trust.
That's very true. So you mentioned some maybe mistakes or challenges you've made because now you have been a bishop 9 years. What were some of your maybe greatest blessings and maybe a greatest challenge in your ministry as a bishop?
Certainly the greatest blessing has been the contact with the people of God. Early on in my ministry, I was told that there were some of our parishes that were struggling, and there was even some talk, should we close this one? Should we close that one? And that sort of talk obviously makes people very nervous and can even upset people. And it's very understandable. We become very attached to our home, our home of faith. And so I realized that if I am going to try and help the parishes to grow, help them to flourish, I need to get to know them. So I undertook a system of parish visits where I would actually go to the parish. I'd move into the rectory for about a week. I'd meet parishioners and explore the territory, get to know even community leaders. That was amazing. I loved that. The contact with the people, the contact with the communities. Some of them were a little nervous, the bishop showing up for a week, what's going on? But when you give room for sort of the randomness of the Holy Spirit to happen, great things occur. I have great stories from those times. I was visiting this one parish, and a gentleman in his early 80s made an appointment to see me because I told people, if you want to meet the bishop, I'm here. Tell me what you want to tell me about the life of this parish. So we sat down, and I said, so what do you want to tell me about the parish? He said, well, I don't really want to tell you anything about the parish. I thought, okay, is there something going on in your personal life? Sometimes people want instead to speak about something personal. Is there something going on you want to discuss? No, not really. I said, so why are we here? He said, well, I never met a bishop before. So he just wanted to meet. So we had a great conversation, and of course, he told all his friends, oh, well, I met the bishop. Oh, what's he like? And, he became an ambassador for my ministry, which was terrific. And I think what the Holy Spirit wanted from that encounter. Another time, a mom came up to me and said, my 10-year-old son wants to meet you. Will you meet a 10-year-old? Sure. Little boy wanted to know, what does the church think of science? Because he loves science and he wants to become a scientist. And is that okay? Can you be Catholic and a scientist? And so we talked about that, and it was just a wonderful encounter. So that stuff is great. That's the awesome side. I love that. The most challenging side, I've had a few challenges, conflicts that occur in the church. I'm sure that's never happened in Sault Ste. Marie, but it has occasionally happened in Montreal. And so you have to mediate conflicts. Sometimes you have to make decisions that are not always popular, and you have to be sure in your heart that you're trying to make the right choice for the people of God and for what needs to happen. Certainly the most difficult was an investigation that I had to do at one point into a priest where there were allegations of abuse. Unfortunately, that occurred, and so I was charged with doing the actual investigation, which proved to be very, very challenging given the nature of the file. And so, yeah, that's not something you want to be doing. It's something that has to get done, but it certainly was a great challenge.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, you are an avid blogger. You're really active on social media and you write a lot about your personal life. Like you wrote beautiful reflections. As you mentioned before, your brother passed away this year. You wrote a beautiful reflection about his life and his death. Like you just mentioned, you've been outspoken in public against sexual abuse in the church. So there seems to be a real transparency about you. Why do you feel that is important for the church today?
I started the blog when I was a parish priest, and I realized that for a lot of our people, they just had no idea what a priest did for most of the week. They saw us on Sunday, but for the rest of the week, they just didn't know. While I, on the other hand, knew that a lot of great things happened. It was actually a very exciting and fun calling, vocation. I mean, every vocation has its challenges, but there was something very beautiful. So I started the blog as a way to share just the amazing stuff. And sometimes the posts were very, very small. Go to dinner at a family and the 5-year-old, does a crayon drawing, and I didn't have a fridge door to put it on, so I put it on the blog, So that was how it got started. I started blogging a bit less when I began to work in administration, just because if you're dealing with, confidential matters, you don't want to obviously be blogging stuff that, is people's private lives. You want to respect that for people. But, your question about transparency, my Episcopal motto is cor et anima una, to be of one mind and heart, or to put it in modern English, to be on the same wavelength. And for me, first of all, I try and be a person of hope and of joy, and I don't see a problem with sharing those things. I think joy, honestly, is going to be one of the critical factors for us in the church to measure how well we're doing, how much we're living in the Spirit. And it's part of the energy that causes us to go forth and love our neighbor and love the Lord. And if somebody says to us, why are you being so joyful? We know right away they're the one with the problem. Joy doesn't need justification. Sincere, genuine joy. I don't know anybody who says to themselves, "Boy, I've just got way too much joy in my life." Nobody says that, So if we can be instruments of that joy and share it, then I think that's a good thing. So with the blog, sometimes we're not experiencing joy as an emotion, but behind joy is the question of meaning. So if I have joy to share, I share it. If I have meaning to share, I share it. And obviously with the right, safeguards so that people's private lives are respected. So that's kind of my approach. And I think it's a contribution, hopefully, to the life and the kind of conversation we want to have within our faith community.
What has helped you maintain that joy throughout your ministry with the ups and downs that come along with your ministry? Is there a certain prayer regimen you have? Is there a certain what helps you fuel your joy in your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. Certainly. Well, first of all, the thing is, it's important to realize that joy is not a pill. It's not. You can't take an injection of joy and be joyful. There's something about it that has to be free, spontaneous, sincere, non-simulated, which means that there will be times when, honestly, it seems absent. And so, as I said, I think joy is real when it seems toned down, perhaps because our emotional state may be a little more flat. Then things like the search for meaning becomes important. And so in my life, I've tended to alternate between, periods of joy and periods of meaning. But at least, if I'm in a sort of a lower state for whatever reason, I have seasonal affective disorder. So in the winter, I get kind of slowed down. And so, our joy is not a mood, joy is a gift of the Spirit. So when other things are there, you kind of look for the meaning dimension as opposed to perhaps the emotional side of the joy. But in terms of prayer, again, it's not about saying this prayer so you can feel this way. That would be a mistake. But when are the times when we feel most joyful, most happy? Like for me, as I said, it's when I'm with the people of God, or when I'm with my friends, or when I'm sharing an important with my family. So I've come to see that, my prayer to God is not just prayers that I say, it's about spending time with my friends in heaven, my family in heaven, Father, Son, Spirit. And I found actually there's something very special about the rosary. It's such a simple prayer. A 5-year-old can say it, a 10-year-old can lead it, and a 50-year-old like me can still learn something from it. I can see why John Paul II said, or St. John Paul II said, that the rosary is his favorite personal prayer, because that's the prayer I was saying as I was driving through, the diocese on that Thanksgiving weekend. I don't know what it is. I guess it's because we get to share in Mary's heart, and, my soul proclaims the greatness of the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. Her prayer is one of joy, and if we share in that, then that's what we feel.
You mentioned some of your friends and your family. What was their reaction to finding out that you were now moving to the Diocese of Sault Ste. Marie? Because you have lived in Montreal most of your life, if not all of your life.
Yeah, well, my family lives in Ottawa now, so for them, we've already had a certain distance, and they're grateful that the move isn't further away. It's possible to drive. I mean, I've already timed it on Google Maps, how far from Sudbury to Mom's house, so that's okay. Friends in Montreal, obviously, there's going to be a time of saying goodbye. I will, through the pandemic, honestly, given lockdowns and everything, even just crossing the bridge to visit them sometimes is not possible. So, we've had to rely on other ways of keeping in touch, and I'm certainly going to stay in touch with them. And it's not as though I'll never come back to visit.
Bishop, it's clear just in talking, this is the first time me and you have met, that there's a certain joy about you, confidence in your ministry, that you feel blessed as a priest and as a bishop. What would you say to a young person who feels that God is calling them to serve the church as a priest?
Yeah, I've thought about that. One of the reasons that I left the sort of the business world in order to go into the priesthood is because I was very lucky. The telecom business was kind of exploding when I was working. And so the company I was with went from 200 people to 800 people in 3 years. And so as it grew, I kind of grew with it. And so I was 24 and I was manager of this international software testing group. And I kind of realized that I was having a foretaste of what my life would be. Through a lot of our career, we kind of maneuver to get the job we want, at least for a certain phase. And I had been sort of given it, and I realized, okay, this is what it will be. It will be more of that. It will be more money, more travel, more authority, fancier titles, whatever. But it was going to be more of that. And I realized that maybe qualitatively, I needed something different. And that's when I thought I have to look into the possibility of priesthood. Priesthood is not a call to a mediocre life. Following the Lord is not a call to a mediocre life. It's actually a call to something quite extraordinary. One has to be open to surprises, such as, being called to be bishop or being sent to Sault Ste. Marie, or something as simple as getting a phone call because someone is dying at home and they really want to have a priest there to accompany them. To have a spirit that is open to those surprises, very important for happiness in this ministry. I tell people, if you want to have a boring life, don't go into ministry. Just don't. You will be very disappointed, okay, if you want to have a boring life. If you want to have a life that is going to have challenges, no question. It's going to challenge us in things that happen outside, and it's going to challenge our own hearts. But if we want to have that, this is an incredible opportunity, because the Lord's in charge, and he's going to bless us with those opportunities. And we're going to be stretched, and we're going to have to grow. If that appeals to you, this is a great place to be.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those. Okay, so you've been named the new bishop of the Diocese of Sault Ste. Marie. People want to get to know you. I'm going to ask you some speed round questions here, okay? And you just tell me the first thing that pops in your mind. You ready?
All right.
Okay, let's go first. The saint that you rely on the most.
Thomas More.
Your favorite home-cooked meal.
Sri Lankan chicken curry.
The place you love to travel to.
Anywhere in the Caribbean.
What do you do on your day off?
Day off? No, just kidding. Generally, I read, exercise, go for walks, that sort of thing.
Okay, your favorite sport?
I run. I'm a runner.
Do you have a favorite sports team?
Not really. Not really. I tend to root for whoever I'm with.
I thought you would say the Habs, being from Montreal.
Yeah, well, that's obvious. I mean,
Okay, what are you watching currently on Netflix?
It's not on Netflix, but I just saw the first episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian.
Nice. What's your favorite liturgical season?
Easter, but I really like the meaningfulness of Lent.
How many selfies have you taken with the Holy Father, Pope Francis?
2.
What are you currently reading?
I just finished a book called Secret Music. It's a novel written by a Montreal author, and I've started a new book, which is a legal drama set in California.
And lastly, what are you looking forward to seeing the most? The Big Nickel or the Wawa Goose?
Actually, I would like to see, if possible, the old neutrino lab or whatever the other dark matter experiments are happening in Sudbury. That I'm really looking forward to.
You'll have lots of time to explore the diocese for sure. Thanks for being a good sport, Bishop. So the last question for you, I'm really grateful for your time today, but what words, if any, do you wish to share with your new flock, the people of the Diocese of Sault Ste. Marie, prior to your arrival here in the diocese?
I just want to say, it's a funny thing. I've had a few people in Montreal. Like, one of the problems of being from the big city is you can get a little snobby about being in the big city. So I've had a few people sort of say to me, "Oh, you're going to Sault Ste. Marie? That's kind of far and kind of small." And you get the impression there's a bit of poor you, and the more they say that, the more offended I'm getting. I realize, no, this is not just my next home, it's already my home. And the more that happens, the more eager I am to get there. So I'm really looking forward to it. J'aimerais aussi ajouter un mot en français pour les gens de la langue française. Je sais que dans le nord d'Ontario, la langue française est très importante. Moi, je viens d'une communauté linguistique minoritaire. Donc, je dis pas que je comprends tous les enjeux, mais je pense qu'il y a de ressemblance. And for the people of the various native communities, this is not something I'm really, that I've really experienced living in Montreal. So I look to you to be my teachers, and I look forward to learning from you. So it's going to be a great experience. I really look forward to being there with all of you.
Thank you very much, Bishop. Thank you for your time today. We are looking forward also to having you as our shepherd here in the diocese. Lots of people have been praying for you prior to your arrival and are anticipating your arrival with great joy, the joy that you talked about a lot today. So thank you. I know it's been a busy time. We were transitioning and moving and packing. Thanks for making the time for us, and we'll continue to keep you in our prayers. And we can't wait to meet you here in the diocese.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to being there.
And thank you for tuning in to this episode of Called to Serve. We thank Bishop Dowd and continue to keep him in your prayers and to pray for more vocations to the priesthood and religious life. We'll see you next time on our next episode of Called to Serve.